Heart of Darkness by Joseph Conrad, novel summary. Heart of Darkness, a novel par excellence, was written by Joseph Conrad in 1902. It is a voyage through the murky essence of mankind. The story begins aboard a boat wedged on the River Thames due to inundation and is based on Charles Marlow's, the main character, brief narration of his childhood and his stint as a riverboat captain in Africa. Now, when I was a little chap, I had a passion for maps. I would look for hours at South America, or Africa, or Australia, and lose myself in all the glories of exploration, said Marlow about his childhood. There were 4 other men on the boat, but none was named by Conrad. As they waited for the tide to subside, the change in the skyline from bright to gloomy corresponds to the storyline. Basically, Heart of Darkness explores the murky Congo wasteland, the brutal conduct of the Belgians towards the natives of Africa, and the obscurity of human beings. According to the story, Marlow was employed by a company to transport ivory and to stealthily sneak out Kurtz, another ivory trader. Kurtz, by virtue of his management tactics, was able to earn a reputation and collected huge quantities of ivory. During his stay in Africa, Kurtz gradually became inclined towards corruption and became a demigod. The boss of the company felt threatened by Kurtz's existence and wanted to collapse his reputation. So Marlow was entrusted with the job of bringing back Kurtz. Marlow was not happy with his fellow white workers because they considered him to be trivial and deceitful. In the course of his assignment, Marlow reached the central trading station, which was managed by a manager who had been depicted as nasty and malevolent. Marlow's suspicion of the manager was augmented when, one day, he found that his ship had sunk. He was sure that the manager had something to do with it. Poor Marlow had to toil and wait for a couple of months to get his ship repaired. It seems Kurtz was ill, and this was one of the reasons for the delay. Marlow had to take him along. This was the period when Marlow came to understand that the manager was deadly against Kurtz and wanted to get rid of him. But the show must go on. That's what Marlow thought, and he set out on a tedious voyage along with the manager, some white negotiators, and a crew of black cannibal tribesmen. Going up that river was like traveling back to the earliest beginnings of the world when vegetation rioted on the earth and the big trees were kings. While on their way upriver, they fell into a trap. For the need of firewood, they stopped to collect some that were laid on the river bank with a note. When deciphered it said, "Wood for you. Hurry up. Approach cautiously." As soon as they resumed sail, the ship was surrounded by a thick fog and was trounced by a gang of concealed inhabitants who shot arrows from the forest. Marlow was saddened by the death of one of the crew members, Black, in the encounter. By now, he was sure that the same inhabitants might have killed Kurtz and his people as well. But his assumption was proved wrong when they reached Kurtz's post, which seemed to be unscathed. A Russian greeted Marlow and his crew. He was a simple trader when he came in contact with Kurtz. Since then, he has become a disciple. The Russians relieved Marlow by informing them that everything was fine and under control. He, being honest and straightforward, acquainted Marlow with the fact that it was Kurtz who had ordered the attack on their ship. It was the Russian who had left the firewood near the river bank. As per the Russian statement, Kurtz stooped to this mean act because he was afraid of being taken back. Since Kurtz was feeble and weak due to his illness, Marlow and his men helped him board the ship. Mission accomplished, Marlow and his men set sail. Although Marlow was not impressed by the way Kurtz dealt with people, while keeping his reputation in mind, he lodged him in his pilot house. During their return voyage, Kurtz was doubtful about the manager's intentions. So he handed over some important documents and a photograph to Marlow. One morning, he gave me a packet of papers and a photograph, the lot tied together with a shoestring. "Keep this for me," he said. "This noxious fool," meaning the manager, "is capable of prying into my boxes when I am not looking." The photograph, as per Kurtz, was of his intended. Then, the night of death, Kurtz's, arrived. Marlow was with Kurtz when he spoke his last words, "The horror. The horror." These words can be interpreted in different ways. But Marlow thought that these words were of Kurtz's remorseful soul, repenting for his iniquitous deeds. Marlow didn't intend to break the news of Kurtz's demise instantly, but the manager's child servant, who had been a veiled spectator, disdainfully told all the crew members about the incident. Mr. Kurtz, he did. After reaching Europe and after a year of confrontation with people in quest of Kurtz's stuff and beliefs, Marlow went to meet Kurtz's fiancée. When he saw her mournful state, instead of telling her the truth, he told her that Kurtz died uttering her name. The last word he pronounced was, "Your name." The story concludes here, and by now it was totally dark on the Thames, which gave an impression that it was leading into a heart filled with enormous gloom.